Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The messages arrived on Facebook Messenger or by email, but seem to have been sent from a place of infinite evil. I will lean over you as you scream and cry and beg for mercy, one letter read, before I slit your expletive throat from ear to ear. Each was signed by a man who used the name Brian Kill, but as the Federal Bureau of Investigation searched for him, its internet detectives found themselves looking into the void. "Everyone please pray for the FBI," the man taunted them. "They are never solving this case, LMAO." Earlier this week, when French police held Telegram Chief Executive Officer Pavel Durov, alleging the app's lack of content moderation enabled its misuse for narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and even the sharing of child pornography, they've set the stage for a critical battle in the long-simmering feud between privacy technology and global law enforcement. For 5 years, from 2012 to 2017, Brian Kill waged what court documents later called a campaign of terror, targeting hundreds of schoolgirls into sharing pornographic images of themselves, which he'd then sell online. The FBI discovered the extortionist was sheltered behind near impenetrable layers of encryption, including the privacy-focused Tails operating system. That case saw Facebook make a 6-figure payout to a security company which succeeded in planting malicious code inside pornographic content sent by a victim and then using it to identify the criminal as 26-year-old unemployed California resident Buster Hernandez. Across the world, though, organized crime cartels are continuing to use free, easily available tech tools, and the patience of some governments is starting to run out. Telegram's encryption isn't highly regarded in this privacy world, but its loose content moderation policies and openness to large chat groups have led Russian dissidents, American neo-Nazis, French left anarchists, and Islamic State jihadists to all use it to send out their message. Telegram is now estimated to have 900 million users, up from 500 million 2 years ago, and in a recent interview, Durov claimed it was making hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising revenues. Facebook, WhatsApp, and other platforms, by contrast, have begun aggressively shutting down dubious accounts and restricting the ease of broadcasting messages in response to mounting concerns over disinformation. Telegram, though, chose to buck the pressure and keep its doors open to all. The Telegram prosecution is almost certain to be a test case of the relationship between privacy and law enforcement requirements, which will shape norms across the world. The libertarian leading Durov, an eccentric billionaire who recently revealed he had donated sperm to father over 100 biological children, probably knew he faced an arrest warrant in France. Likely, he took the decision to travel there from the United Arab Emirates to provoke a legal showdown. For decades, computers have relied on what is called asymmetric cryptographic algorithms to encrypt sensitive information, like the messages banks use to transfer money across the world. First developed by the computer scientists Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, and Leonard Adleman in 1977, this kind of encryption relies on the fact that large prime numbers are extremely difficult to factorize, even with the computational resources of nation-states. Large prime number cryptography remains the backbone of most encrypted communications today. In essence, asymmetric cryptography involves two password-protected keys: a public key which users freely distribute, and a private key which remains secret with them. To retrieve information is impossible unless both keys are available. Following the 2015 shooting of 14 people in San Bernardino, California by Syed Rizwan Farooq and his wife Tashfeen Malik, Apple told the FBI it had no means to decrypt their locked iPhones. The FBI eventually turned to Azimuth Technologies, an Australian cybersecurity firm, which developed tools to hack the devices, thus bypassing the encryption problem altogether. This problem was not unique to the United States. Telegram's founder is said to have been forced to leave Russia for the UAE after he refused to hand over encrypted user details about dissidents from VKontact, the country's equivalent of Facebook. Telegram, Durov's next project, was also banned in Russia. The restrictions were lifted in 2020 though, possibly because Telegram's loser encryption protocols enabled Russian intelligence services to keep a close eye on what was going on. Even though Apple faced growing pressure from the FBI to introduce a so-called backdoor into its systems, allowing the company to provide access to its devices to law enforcement, the company refused. To do so, Apple argued, would create vulnerabilities that hackers could also use to steal things like bank account details or credit card information or intimate personal data. The revelations of large-scale espionage by Israeli-made spyware Pegasus, targeting the phones of heads of state, political dissidents, and even journalists, led to growing public concerns over privacy. In 2019, amid litigation between WhatsApp and Pegasus manufacturer NSO, demand for encrypted messaging grew among the public. Even if most people do not have the kinds of information intelligence services are looking for, they feared growing intrusion on their private lives. And as the Brian Kill story tells us, that's not an unreasonable fear. For many in the tech world, resisting state intrusion into their lives was a matter of principle, even ideological conviction. Together with his brother Nikolai, a world-famous Rubik's Cube prodigy, Pavel had moved to Italy as a child after his father escaped from the Soviet system. Later, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the family moved back to St. Petersburg. There, armed with an IBM personal computer, a rare thing back in those days, Pavel designed VKontact at the age of just 21, leading eventually to his confrontation with the Kremlin over user data. In 2020, the Council of the European Union began holding hearings on encryption. It issued a resolution calling for tech firms to cooperate with law enforcement to combat, I quote, terrorism, organized crime, child sexual abuse, particularly its online aspects, as well as a variety of other cybercrime and cyber-enabled crime. This call was followed by credible reports that servers in just 7 European Union states hosting much of the world's child pornographic content, with more than 225,000 sites being detected in 2020 alone. The case of child pornography wasn't unique. Large parts of international narcotics network had shifted their marketing operations onto the so-called dark web, networks which operate on the internet but need secret configurations or passwords to be accessed. Law enforcement also became very worried about the use of social media propaganda platforms, including Telegram, to recruit jihadists to the Islamic State and mobilize supporters for neo-Nazi groups in the West. The storming of Capitol Hill in 2021 catalyzed these fears among policymakers. Following the European Parliament hearings, some law enforcement agents proposed using tools like scanning the hash values of uploaded content to identify child pornography. Each digital file, you see, has a unique numerical hash value, and it is thus possible to detect the same film being uploaded by multiple users, potentially without compromising encryption. For their part, tech companies pushed back using two key arguments. First, Signal app CEO Meredith Walker noted that there was no simple tech fix to remove certain kinds of content without undermining the security of encryption as a whole. Each technical means, after all, involved the deliberate introduction of a vulnerability, and that vulnerability was open to misuse by criminals, just as it was used by law enforcement. Efforts to moderate content, tech companies argued, simply didn't address the enormous quantity of material flowing through the internet. Telegram, to be fair, did try and remove some of the most violent content it hosted, but with little success. Facebook and Instagram officials in the United States recently argued are still awash with child pornography and various other offensive material despite enormous moderation efforts. The second problem was that targeting encrypted messaging services probably wouldn't address the problem. Since 2015, jihadist organizations like Al Qaeda and the Islamic State have developed proprietary digital technologies to mask their activities. Equipped with enormous budgets, narcotics cartels in Mexico had even succeeded in creating digital means to defeat the state of the art surveillance technology used by law enforcement in the United States. In essence, weakening encryption would make ordinary citizens more vulnerable either to illegal surveillance by the state or by criminals, while doing little to deter real criminals. As the Buster Hernandez and San Bernardino cases show, police have often registered success without weakening encryption. In another famous case, the FBI planted fake encrypted phones on criminal cartels using a dummy company it set up for the purpose. So cops aren't totally helpless or clueless. Following Durov's arrest, though, these debates are likely to come to a head. French counter-terrorism judges in one case involving ultra-left terrorism brought to court last year appeared to argue that even using the Tails operating system, which you can download free online, or the Tor anonymous browser system, in itself constitutes suspicious behavior. The judge's remarks extended even to Proton Mail, a highly secure paid alternative to services like Google, which harvest user data for advertising. Last year, the United Kingdom's internet regulator delivered a major blow to tech companies, requiring them to mandatorily scan client data for child pornography. The government appeared to acknowledge it was aware this would undermine end-to-end encryption, and to admit it was simply impossible for WhatsApp and Signal and other such firms to conduct such scanning thoroughly. There's no telling, though, what future litigation will lead to. The laws over encryption in India, meanwhile, have led companies like WhatsApp to warn they may have to terminate their services in the country. The impact of such developments remains deeply unclear. Even though many virtual private network companies, which allow users to access websites blocked by regulators, have exited India, their services remain widely used, a legal grey zone. Living in a new online age, the world needs to seriously debate the ethics and norms that ought to guide us through it. This debate is too serious to be left to government and law enforcement alone. Whatever Pavel Durov's motives in going to France might be, he'll likely deserve our thanks for igniting this discussion. I'm Praveen Swami and I'm a contributing editor to ThePrint. Thank you for watching this episode of Security Code.